I'm such a terrible YouTuber. I don't know why I act like I haven't been doing this shit forever. I take a break, a tiny break, come back, and I just swear I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But we're going to watch this video, y'all. This one is 10 WWE wrestling matches that bored fans to tears. There are definitely some matches out there that are boring as hell. The main one that I remember was the Kane versus the Imposter match. That was the most recent one that I watched not too long ago. That one was boring as hell. But yeah, we're gonna get into this video, so let's watch.
Sometimes a match is so utterly lifeless that the crowd either sit in silence or they try to entertain themselves.
I'm sorry.
This is always down to the talent in the match itself, as sometimes WWE's booking of the match has left a lot to be desired, and fans are firmly against seeing the match taking place at all. Additionally, not every match that leads to a lackluster crowd response is a bad match. Sometimes the crowd are unbelievably exhausted from a long show and they decide to preserve their energy and ultimately disengage with the match before their very eyes. Join us now as WrestleMania looks at 10 WWE matches that bored fans to tears. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive news. Also check out our new website, WrestleMania.com.
Just start crying.
10,
like I wish this would end.
Triple H, King of the Ring 2002. Please. On paper, a pay-per-view main event which features The Undertaker defending his WWE title against Triple H sounds absolutely awesome. But when the two collided at the 2002 King of the Ring event, it completely fell flat. The two had the single worst match of their storied rivalry, as it was slow, boring, and the crowd just didn't care.
I hate that.
The two were going through the motions, and the crowd only came alive when The Rock made an appearance. The match received scathing reviews, and even Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter would rate the match just half a star. The match was a clear indication that WWE needed to go in a new direction. Triple H needed to revert to his heel persona, and the dead man as a heel WWE champion wasn't really working in the summer 2002. Thankfully, WWE did listen to the lackluster crowd response, and within the next 6 weeks, the game would turn heel, the dead man would turn babyface, and new blood would enter the main event scene in the form of Brock Lesnar. Number 9, Seth Rollins.
I love when the crowd lets it be known that like this shit is boring, because us watching on TV, we can't let them know like this is boring and I wish they would wrap it up because it's boring. Like, bro, like this is hard to watch. So I love that the audience like lets it be known like this is boring. This is boring. Like, I love that so much. It'd be so funny.
Versus Baron Corbin at Stomping Grounds 2019. The WWE product in 2019 wasn't being received well by the general audience, and the Stomping Grounds pay-per-view was another showcase that WWE were failing to understand what the fan base wanted to see. The attendance for the Stomping Grounds show was around 4,000, which meant that half the arena was completely empty, and it was evidence that the majority of fans weren't willing to pay to attend a pay-per-view event until the WWE turned things around. The main event of the show saw Seth Rollins defend his Universal title against Baron Corbin, and the added stipulation was that it would be a no DQ match with Lacey Evans as the guest referee. This was one of the worst matches of 2019, and the crowd response was barely passable for a Raw main event. Unfortunately, the crowd just didn't seem to remotely care about Corbin in the main event role, and just everyone being 100% sure that Rollins wasn't dropping the title, they completely switched off for the entire duration of the matchup. Number 8, The Undertaker vs. The Big Boss Man, WrestleMania 15. You would think that WWE booking a Hell in a Cell match at a WrestleMania event during the Attitude Era would have warranted a pay-per-view classic, but you would be very wrong. At WrestleMania 15, The Undertaker collided with Big Boss Man inside Satan's structure, and it sounded as if the WWE had muted the crowd audio, as that's how quiet the crowd really were. The match was a by-the-numbers match, and there was hardly any reason why the match was inside the cell, as it was barely used. It also didn't help that fans were confused as to why they were supposed to be cheering for, as it was never made clear who the babyface was and who the heel was.
Oh, really?
This is, without question, one of the most disappointing WrestleMania matches of all time, and it's certainly one of the dead man's matches within his legendary streak that fans wish they could forget. Number 7, Randy Orton vs. John Cena, Royal Rumble 2014. Randy Orton vs. John Cena had become an incredibly stale match by the time WWE arrived at the 2014 Rumble. Fans had seen the match an endless amount of times, and the Rumble crowd had zero interest in seeing the match take place yet again. From the opening bell, the crowd decided to entertain themselves with chants of Daniel Bryan and Y2J, and this clearly rattled both men who were evidently expecting a lively, enthusiastic crowd. After around 10 minutes of the crowd either not reacting or chanting for people who weren't even in the match, the two attempted to do something new and would begin to use each other's finishing moves. Whilst this changed the crowd somewhat, it wasn't the most subtle thing in the world, and it was obvious that Cena and Orton were trying to get the crowd on their side. The biggest reaction of the match was when the Wyatt family appeared, which would ultimately lead to Orton picking up the win with an RKO. Number 6, Dean Ambrose vs Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 32. Fans were buzzing from the first moment Dean Ambrose and Brock Lesnar engaged in battle at WrestleMania 32. The two faced off in a no-holds-barred street fight, and fans expected the match to be an Attitude Era style match with violence and maybe even some bloodshed. Many fans weren't just bored, they were incredibly disappointed, as this was a huge WrestleMania match and arguably the most anticipated matchup on the entire card. According to Ambrose himself, he had some crazy ideas for the match that the crowd would have loved, but Lesnar shot virtually every single one of them down.
Damn, Lesnar.
Io Sky vs Bianca Belair, Crown Jewel 2023. Crown Jewel 2023 featured a stacked card, and one of the women's matches on the show saw Io Sky defend a women's title against Bianca Belair. This was a rematch from the 2003 Backlash event, a match which received critical acclaim, so fans expected another stellar match between the two talented stars. For whatever reason, the Saudi Arabia crowd was silent for the entirety of the match. You could hear a pin drop in the arena. The crowd was just that quiet and lifeless.
You could
It was as if this was a match that they had seen 1,000 times before, and the crowd response did ultimately hinder the quality of the match on offer. The most notable moment of the match saw the return of Kairi Sane, but even this received little enthusiasm from the crowd. It was a massive shame as the match and the return had major potential, and it just goes to show that sometimes a match needs a lively crowd to deliver something special. Number 4, Triple H vs Vladimir Kozlov, Survivor Series 2008. Despite the crowd failing to care about anything Vladimir Kozlov did, WWE persisted with his push, and at the 2008 Survivor Series event, Kozlov would challenge Triple H for the WWE title. Initially, this was supposed to be a triple threat match to also include Jeff Hardy, but during the pay-per-view, it was announced that Hardy had been removed from the match due to him being found unconscious. The singles match between Kozlov and the Game didn't belong on the Big 4 pay-per-view, as a crowd wanted zero part of it. The two had zero chemistry, and even though Triple H tried his best to get the crowd invested, Kozlov simply wasn't cut out for the WWE title scene. The crowd finally came alive when Vicky Guerrero came on stage and announced that he was finally here. Fans assumed that this was Jeff Hardy, but in a shock twist, it was the returning Edge who would enter the match. Hardy would eventually show up towards the end, but his appearance was very brief, and it was an ultra-fresh Edge who would be able to take advantage of the total bedlam in the ring and win the WWE title. Number 3, Randy Orton vs The Big Show, Survivor Series 2013. WWE's outright refusal to feature Daniel Bryan as the top guy in the company meant that Survivor Series 2013 was main evented by Randy Orton vs The Big Show for the WWE title. This match was quite rightly heavily criticized, as it was unbelievably boring and dull, and the fact that it main evented a huge pay-per-view was truly baffling. The match lasted just over 10 minutes and the action was insanely generic, as the two awkwardly exchanged basic moves and spots for the duration of the match. Orton would eventually get the win with the worst looking punk kick of all time, and after the match, John Cena would make a surprise appearance to promote the upcoming unification match. WWE fans wanted fresh blood. They didn't want Orton versus The Big Show, and they certainly didn't want to see another rerun of the Orton versus Cena rivalry. Number 2, The Miz vs John Cena, WrestleMania 27. WrestleMania 27 has what is considered to be one of the most lackluster WrestleMania events ever, as The Miz would be challenged by John Cena for the WWE title. The match suffers from a distinct lack of chemistry and a crowd that were completely exhausted. The crowd had used up all their energy for the Undertaker vs Triple H showdown, and they were acting to the Miz and Cena match as if it was a standard match on Raw or SmackDown. The only time they came alive was when The Rock appeared, but even this did little to save the poor quality of the match itself. And number 1, Triple H vs Randy Orton, WrestleMania 25. WWE had successfully delivered a compelling feud for the WWE title heading into WrestleMania 25. The feud between Triple H and Randy Orton, although it had been done before, had a brand new edge thanks to Orton's vendetta against the McMahon family. Fans wanted a match that would push the boundaries of the PG era, and there was also a hope that the match would feature a swerve or two. Sadly, the Game and Orton had the exact match they delivered 100 times before, and the crowd immediately disengaged. Fans wanted to see something new in the match, but Triple H and Orton were wrestling as if the two weren't in a heated blood feud. They also added the stipulation that if Triple H was counted out or DQ'd, then he would lose the WWE title. This was also another factor that
they
killed
could have done
fans'
something better to
interest in the match,
freshen it
as the
up.
moment the bell rang, fans were fully aware that the match wasn't going to be able to deliver what they wanted. But there you have it, folks. 10
They should have been
WWE
able to bring
matches that
something
bored
more
fans
than
to
that,
tears.
especially if they've done that like 100 times. Like, okay, we've seen this before. Like, can we do something new with this? But that's gonna do it for this reaction. I'll make sure y'all leave some likes and comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. I will see y'all in the next one. Toodles.